Hello, good evening. I am Tracy Peterson. This is Near Future Industries. Near Future Industries is essentially a way for me to no longer be bored. I love comics, I love sci-fi, I love video games. All of these things tend to represent the near future so often that I figured we'd talk about near future industries and the things that are coming soon that we all care about. And tonight is one of the most important coming soons in a long time because the Justice League is coming. And Justice League is a movie that I think gets down and dirty for some of the things that we love. And let me share one thing here. I think that honestly, it's way hyped movie, and I can't say enough about how much folks will be anticipating this movie. Just a moment, I'm trying to figure out I want to share the Near Future Industries page to share with our friends. Bear with me 1 second here. All right, that should be a little bit better. Hello to Facebook viewers, hello to YouTube viewers, and hello to our Twitch channel. I hope you're doing well, and welcome back once again. It's good to see you. I'm paging through the chats so that I make sure I catch anything that you might say to me. So please, I will be peeking over here relatively often so that you can comment. But I have some things to say. I actually prepared today as this inaugural episode of Near Future Industries. I prepared. I did. And that preparation led me to a few things. And I wanted to talk certainly about Justice League. But I also want to talk about some history. And I want to talk about Jack Kirby. And I want to talk about what that individual means to all of us who care about comics and superhero movies. And it's not about Stan Lee. It's not about DC Comics. It's not about and all the people who obviously meant so much in the leadership of DC Comics. But it's about there are some notable. There is a notable force in the change of the way that comic books and the Western comics were created through the 60s and 70s. That laid the foundation for almost everything that we believe in now, or that we look at comics now, and whose imagination gave us all of this. He was easily on par with Disney, perhaps without the business sense. In fact, Disney didn't, by his own reckoning, didn't have a whole lot of business sense anyway, without the brothers who had the business sense, I should say. So going back to that, let's talk a little bit about the Justice League. And to help me with that, I have some visual aids. Those are always good. Let's see here. I think, yes, this is our modern Justice League. This Justice League is Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Batman, Cyborg, Flash, and Superman. And these characters, it's kind of a weird mix, right? I've heard, okay, so first of all, let's start off with Wonder Woman. She's amazing. One of the most beautiful women acting today. We love her. She performs as Wonder Woman amazing. I don't know that she's, the greatest classical actor in the sense, but she's a great actor, and she does really well. And she performs these very physical role that is awesome. And she does it with a sense of style that's all her own. And easily, I want to say that Linda Carter was my Wonder Woman from the 70s. I didn't have any puberty by the time I knew that she was a beautiful and attractive woman. But Gal Gadot is smoking. She's incredibly beautiful. She's talented. She's very physical in her performance. She has a charisma that you can't deny. I find myself staring at her when she's on screen. So great. I'm glad we found a Wonder Woman, because that was something that was always in danger. And I think that, when it's a primary primarily female character, people tend to be cautious because ultimately comic books are power fantasies, and without when you take that away from a male, it's just like a female-led action movie. It tends to give Hollywood pause, and I think that we finally got something good in Gal Gadot. So great, keep it up, and I'm also proud of her for making it so that she made a comment recently about the allegations of sexual harassment and so on that Brett Ratner has received, and she made it clear with her power in her position that she would no longer be Wonder Woman if he's still attached to these movies. So good for her. She's driving her own ship, and good luck to everything she does. Now, Aquaman, Jason Momoa, also smoking hot. The guy has it going on. Now, okay, so I like what they did with his badassness. I like what they considered, him for. I like how they changed Aquaman into the Pacific Islander. I mean, all of that is amazing. And the idea that Aquaman is a Pacific Islander is super cool because, seriously, you can't. Aquaman was kind of milquetoast, and in the 70s and 60s, all the hero characters, they're all white. I mean, that was the audience that they were shooting for, and that was the story that they were writing. But in a modern age, and when you start to look at things that are culturally driven and technologically driven and scientifically driven, it makes a whole lot more sense that a dude who is in touch with the ocean, who has a mental telepathic bond with the creatures of the ocean, who is powerful in the ways that he is. I mean, and he's also super strong. I think that Pacific Islander was a great choice. Also, something that's super important to recognize is that he is almost Superman's equal. I think in a lot of ways he is Superman's equal. He just doesn't have certain powers like ice breath or laser eyeball lasers. So with that said, and he's a king, and he, I guess Kal-El is king of Krypton. If you're the only one left, but there's no Krypton, so whatever. He's the king of Smallville, at least. So Aquaman's super awesome. The one thing that I am bummed about that I'll bring up now about Aquaman and the casting choice, Jason Momoa, is that I love Jason Momoa. However, who's going to play Lobo in my dream casting version of Lobo? He was my Lobo. He was going to be Lobo. Why? They used him. They used him up. It's over. I can't get the Lobo that I thought I deserved, that I thought the world deserved. But here we are. So Lobo, I have to think of it in the dream casting, working on it. Right now it was going to be Jason Momoa. Maybe Rob Zombie. Send him to the gym. Anyway, on to Henry Cavill as Superman. We know he's coming back. We knew he was coming back. He had to come back. This is apparently, I read an article today. They were talking about how this movie is actually Henry Cavill's swan song. It's kind of the Superman recovery, where if you look at all three movies in order, they're actually all Superman movies. And Zack Snyder, his plan was to do these all as Superman movies. So I think maybe that could have been a good thing. They have done that. I don't know. I'm not certain. I'm not certain I buy into that bit. But one thing that I do agree with it, though. I mean, one thing I hope is that they do get. I gotta block some people that. When you do a public video, you immediately get these links. So I got to block a couple of these fools. I will mercilessly block. So going back to Henry Cavill and the Superman trilogy, essentially the statement was that Zack Snyder had created a perfect Superman trilogy with the inclusion of Justice League. So that people who are watching Justice League as just a Justice League movie, that's one thing. But they should be looking at it as a Superman movie with a lot of other characters in it. I have no idea how much screen time Superman has in the Justice League, but I think that if you look at it in this way, and the way that it was described, it sounds a sensible assessment. I'd like to see more of it, where you had Superman in the first movie. He was kind of this unknown alien trying to figure out what's going on, not really used to his powers, had the first combat test of his powers with Zod, and everything went to crap. He had to having to kill somebody and so on and so forth. Then later, he meets Batman, sacrifices himself to save the world with Apocalypse, and he is redeemed that he is willing to save it. Basically, it redeems him as a superpowered being because we now know that he is willing to give his life for humanity, which is a thing that I think that they were unclear on before, and it was something that made Batman's pursuit of him a little bit more poignant, right? So now we can go back to some other questions, right? So Superman, looking good, looking buff, and another insanely attractive person. I mean, this is basically all models except for Ben Affleck, as far as I can see. No offense, Ben Affleck, you're a good-looking guy, but next to everybody else, you're a freaking troll. So, and then we get to Ben Affleck. I'm bummed to see that he's having some issues with, drug and alcohol recovery. You can check out some recovery centers here, like Hazelden and others. That's Kool-Aid in there. But I say that, I wish him all the best of health and everything else, and all the stuff going on with the sexual harassment allegations and his complicity with Harvey Weinstein. Like, all of those things I hope go well for him and he gets sorted out. And that's, I'm sorry about that. But, and maybe those things make him a little distasteful to be as Batman, and maybe he kind of takes away a little bit of his heroism as Batman. But I'll give him this. He was great as Batman in BVS. He really saved that movie, to be honest. I think he's going to be great in this movie. I think he's a good actor. I think he's a good director. I think he's a great storyteller. He did a huge amount of work to build up and buff up and become Batman physique ripped. Good on him. I hope that all these things work out to the best possible ways. Great. Ray, I forget his name. I forget his last name. Anyway, Ray Miller? No, Ray. And then we get to Cyborg. So, all right, first of all, Cyborg was always kind of the inclusion. Ray Fisher. I should have known. Ray Fisher. Another attractive guy, another big physical guy, another great actor. I hear he does really well, and Cyborg turns out to be one of the things. And all of the commercials, though, that really bugs the crap out of me. And he's like super quiet and monotonous, and I think he's trying to be robotic. But Cyborg isn't about someone being robotic. It's about someone who's very energetic and very passionate and very, very heartfelt, who is encased in a robot body, who can't really do anything about it. That's the whole character, is, that he wishes that he had more, human contact, that he was more human, that he was more physical. That's the kind of person that he's supposed to be. But unfortunately, we haven't seen that. All right. Oh, I'm getting some chats. Sorry. I'm bummed that the Amazon costumes seen from pictures. No, I did see the brutal Vanity Fair article about the entire thing. I saw the Vanity Fair article that said that, it was a garbage movie and whatever else, but I kind of read double deep into that, and I was like, I'm gonna leave that be. And it's also the one outlying article I've read that some people weren't super impressed with it, but that they still enjoyed themselves. It was a good movie, but like I'm gonna let that one wash. Like I'm really careful that there's a few critics that I'll really pay attention to, because I like what they like. I've appreciated what they've said. I'd appreciate it, So I tend to look at critics like I would a friend who's offering me advice on what to watch. I don't follow the advice of critics who I don't think are in sync with what I like, because I don't think that they're going to get me steered in the right direction. I did not see about the Amazon costumes from pictures. I don't know what you mean by that, but from what I understood is that they were fairly historically correct, and if they still followed through with the same type of stuff that they were working on in Wonder Woman, that they should be still pretty good. But those are different teams, different costuming, so they might have been not the same. I don't know. I'd love to hear more. I'd love to hear more about your opinion on that. So moving on, Ray Fisher, again, I felt like, they kind of, muted his performance. They really didn't live up to the thing that I thought they could. Like I didn't feel like, there was no booyah. Uh, there was no booyah. He said booyah. That was his thing. And then I guess later they say that he does say it in the movie at some point, but that seems like a Whedon add-in, and I don't know. I think Cyborg's a hard character to get right, and I think Cyborg's a weird inclusion. I've never really liked him as a modern Justice League member. I always felt that he was kind of like the leader of the Teen Titans, maybe, or like the guideline of the Teen Titans. But in later iterations, they sort of used Cyborg to tie back to the Fourth World characters, and we'll get to that in a second. That's a big Kirby thing. JL2 would be better to best. How do you mean? Uh, oh, they're leather bikinis. That's no good. Yeah. Sorry. I hope that isn't awful. I've heard though that the Wonder Woman like Themyscira scene is kind of almost like a video game cutscene. So I'm a little worried about that myself. But yeah, I'm sorry, because originally the Wonder Woman stuff was amazing, and they were all wearing these super great like physically light armor that they could fight in, and it looked really good. But now we're going to my boy Flash. Flash is awesome, and apparently Ezra Miller knocks it out of the park. I still kind of like, I still miss my blonde Barry Allen. I'm glad they didn't try to put Wally in. Like, that's a whole other story that doesn't deserve time right now. But Barry Allen, to me, is a blonde-haired, blue-eyed guy. I know, there's the whole concept of race and everything else, but I feel like they did do some things in a diversity way, in a good, diverse way. But I don't think that necessarily, it's a little thing, but you always see pictures of Barry Allen is blonde hair and blue eyes, and there's something about it. I don't know. There's something about a perceived innocence about him. He wears a bow tie at work. He's super American, all-American cop guy. He's like the good cop, I mean, there's a lot of things about that whole element. I don't think it really takes that much away. Like, I got over Grant Gustin not being blonde blue eyes, but I still kind of want to see the Barry Allen that I see in the comics, and they keep changing it, and for better or worse, whatever. But it's just, and I don't think it's a thing to be avoided, a blonde hair, blue eye, and I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing that he's not blonde hair, blue eyes. I just want to see the character that I recognize, just once. But that said, he looks awesome, and he buffed up, and he plays this comedic character really well. And Barry Allen has this lightheartedness to him. He has an innocence about him. He lived through a tragedy of his mother getting killed in front of him. He saw this when he was a child. His father went away to prison because of it. He's got this great heroic backstory, and I feel like, I think they sound like they've done something really good with him. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how he actually plays out on screen. Now, that's about that. Let's move on to the next point. And this is what our DC now. So this is an important thing. It's going back, not to sensationalize the change back of the white blonde Arthur Curry, but let's talk about the one character who is completely missing from the lineup. That's Green Lantern. There are a lot of choices that they could have made here, and as I understand it, there's a brief appearance of Green Lanterns talking about the history of Green Lanterns. But how could you not take this opportunity to fix the bullshit that happened with Green Lantern movie? I mean, straight up. Here's the deal. You have a lot of options. You have a lot of options for Green Lanterns. One, you got Kyle Rayner. He is the artist. His Green Lantern creations tend to be much more artistic in nature. You got Guy Gardner, who's the ex-football player. He's all sports stuff. He's also the most bombastic and usually the biggest jerk. He's a jerk. But Speaking of diversity, there's your first ginger on the team. Um, then you have John Stewart, who is amazing. He's an ex-Marine. His things are much more military based, but he's also an architect, and a lot of his stuff is much more kind of angular and architects, based. And then you got the old standby Hal Jordan, the pilot, the military man. He's also as much as John Stewart's a military man, but I think that I think they kind of oversaturate it with military folks, because there's the idea that you have to be super unafraid and combat ready to be a Green Lantern. Hal Jordan, the pilot, the original, the successor to Abin Sur, who was the actual Green Lantern of the sector 1864, the sector that Earth is in. And then you got Jessica Cruz, who is an awesome new addition, first female Green Lantern for Earth. Tons of female Green Lanterns otherwise. And then you got Simon Baz, who wears a gun as a Green Lantern, and only recently gave it up. He was accused wrongly of terrorism and so on. Baz and Jessica tend to have a little bit of friction. They are the currently in the DC mythos, they are the local Earth Lanterns. They kind of stay on Earth. They don't necessarily go too much to Oa. But in any case, you have all these options that they could have picked, that they could have moved forward with, and they didn't do any of them. And I feel like it was really a missed opportunity. I think that if I were picking how to do this, I would have gone with Jessica and Simon, and I would have then panned back out and reintroduced Hal and John and everybody else as with the Green Lantern Corps. And you had this great opportunity because Green Lantern Corps movie's already been announced. They could have said, well, we're going to take our 2 local lanterns and we're totally going to have them, do their appearance, have them be created, right? Have them, because Simon Baz creates his own ring. Like his ring doesn't even come to him during a battle. He creates his own out of sheer will, out of a borrowed ring. And so arguably his willpower is higher than others. Then you have Jessica, who actually, she's got paranoid anxiety issues, and she becomes paralyzed by fear, which is something that a Green Lantern can't be, is afraid. Otherwise, they can't manipulate the willpower force of the ring. So she overcomes that in every instance that she engages an enemy. So she's a very dynamic and interesting character. So I don't understand why they didn't take those opportunities. I mean, it's just one of those things that you kind of, I feel like, they missed that amazing opportunity to show those guys. It might have been a budget decision, Megan. I think that it's, I don't know. I think as much as the rest of the movies in CG, they didn't have to do a CG bodysuit like they did before. They could have done a lot of stuff with it. Or, you could have had them struggling with, manipulating the rings. Because in my head, how I would have done it, in my head canon, I would have them appear with their powers in the fight, having already been connected somewhere else before that. And then you would kind of display them, you wouldn't even have to explain who they really were until the beginning of the Justice League, until in the beginning of the Green Lantern Corps movie, where you could reintroduce them, go back over their origins, and then throw them off to Oa to be trained by the Corps. Before that, they could just be invited to work with the League. The League could be like, oh, and then Batman could be like, oh, I've heard of these things before. Why don't you come and help us out or something, right? There's ways that they could have gotten it into the movie. It seems like they kind of cheaped out. I don't know. I wouldn't know if it's CG. So the first thing that we're talking about is the villain. That's Steppenwolf. But the thing is, this isn't the right Steppenwolf. This is the Steppenwolf in the movie, and Steppenwolf is the uncle of, or much better known, Darkseid. I don't know. I waver between the two. I think one of those pronunciations is good. In any case, this dude Steppenwolf right here is he's the uncle. He's basically a harbinger of apocalypse. He's coming to convert Earth to basically capture its people, turn the strongest into parademons, start mining, start creating hell pits. I don't really know what the goal of Apocalypse is, except for he's on a search. Darkseid is on a search for the anti-life equation. We don't even, MacGuffins. But Steppenwolf in the comics, he's got his big horns thing. He's a pretty tough guy. Not named after the band. Steppenwolf, I found out today, actually means coyote. It's what it's some other language for coyote. I don't know. This is what Steppenwolf looks like in the animated series. This is much closer to what the Kirby wrote, drew back in the day. But here's his nephew, Darkseid. We're not going to see him in this installment, and maybe this is just leading to him coming later. But Darkseid is kind of the centerpiece of all of DC's cosmic stuff, right? The equivalent to him in Marvel would be Thanos, but he came first, to be honest. And here's something that's important to recognize is that, everybody, including that really crappy Vanity Fair article, compares this to Avengers movies. And to be honest, they should have been making these movies this way before. They should have been making them over the top, comic booky, just take cues from the cartoons. I mean, their animated series are amazing. Just do all of their animated series in live action the way that you want to. And the thing that ties them together, which the reason why DC and Marvel are so lockstep in these eras with Thanos and with all these, cosmic characters and things, is because of one Jack Kirby. And I'll show you what a Jack Kirby rendition of Darkseid looks like. And Darkseid, back in the day, looked like kind of a guy who you really didn't want to mess with. He was ugly, beaten, just kind of weathered facial features. He's also in possession of a thing called the Omega Beam, which it's the end. That's what they call it, the Omega Beam. This is his son Orion, and he is actually Orion of the New Gods. He is actually Darkseid's son, but this dude went to live with the other side. Darkseid would be considered like the evil gods. The High Father is the king of the good gods, and High Father and is on New Genesis. Darkseid presides over a planet called Apocalypse. One side's very dark and evil and doomy, gloomy, and the other side is very, very, very sweet and kind and caring and looking after each other. And the whole thing is that oh, by the way, I should mention I'm gonna try not to provide spoilers. So, and I haven't seen the movie, so I can't really do anything that I can't provide any spoilers that I haven't read somewhere else. Anyway, in any case, the whole of the New Gods pantheon, it has its good side, its bad side. And the whole thing is that, somehow Darkseid wins if he captures the anti-life equation, and somehow High Father loses if that happens. So they're kind of, in contention the whole time. And the other weird thing is that Orion is actually Darkseid's son, who was ransomed to High Father to be his ward and be raised as his own. And in exchange, which always makes me feel kind of bad, Mr. Miracle, or Scott Free, was ransomed to Darkseid to be raised as an Apocalypse person of Apocalypse. And unfortunately, Scott Free, who never and you should, if you haven't been reading, you should check out the current Mr. Miracle series, which is amazing. It's in DC Comics right now. We're on number 3 this week, and I read it, and it is the coolest. It's one of the realest DC stories I've read in a long time, and it's hard to get over, because he just wants to be who he is. Scott Free is like, he was given up by his father, High Father. He was given to Darkseid. He was made a part of this evil pantheon. He was beaten up. He was thrown into the slave pits by Granny Goodness. He has had an awful run of his life. He's been beaten senseless. No one doubts his commitment to goodness at this point, because he's just trying to do the best he can, being a guy that has had all that happen to him. And he's also married to one of the hottest DC ladies, Big Barda, who was one of the Furies, or Darkseid's warrior women. but they escaped. They got away. But here's the thing, going back to the wackiness of the 60s and 70s and the Jack Kirby style, Mr. Miracle is an escape artist. That's his whole jam. He cannot be held. And that's why they called him scot-free, because they would joke about him being able to get away scot-free. So, but he doesn't actually know his real name. That was revealed today. So, and that's the last bit I have, but I wanted to share these guys because one of the most important things I'll leave with this is that I think that one of the most important people that we honestly have never given enough recognition to is Jack Kirby. And, you hear his name all the time, and I think he's gotten a lot more recognition in the last decade or so. I think, outside of the comic book circles, but Jack Kirby literally created the foundations of characterization for both DC and Marvel that carried on through the 70s. Stuff before from like the 40s and 50s, that was another host of people like Bill Finger and others who were awesome folks who gave us these characters. But the one person who did the most, I think, over this time was Jack Kirby, who he created so many amazing stories and so many outlandish backgrounds. I mean, things that we would never think of. And really that's where the core of a great story is, and something that you could never think on your own, it's something that introduces somebody else's crazy daydream into your life. And the more fantastic these things are, the further they take us away out of our own lives. And for that, I salute Jack Kirby. It won't be the first time that I did say that, or the last time that I say Jack Kirby's amazing. But I think it is about time to end the discussion. I think Justice League is going to be awesome. I'm looking forward to seeing my boy Flash on the screen. Once again, I want to see how that pans out with Ezra Miller. And to all of you, I say thanks for watching. This is Near Future Industries. Take a look online for us, and I will be back with more stuff, because once again, it's all about me curing my boredom and sharing with you my passion for science fiction, forward-looking media, comic books, movies, and all that fun stuff that talk about things that are just around the corner in the near future. See you soon.